Well, the haters gonna hate, 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 and the fakers gonna fake, 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 baby. I'm just gonna making luck, a Dominion podcast.
So,
Remember what else you were saying though?
yeah. Welcome to Making Luck, a Dominion podcast.
Thank you, man.
I'm Jake, and with me as always is Lexi. Hi, Lexi. Oh, hey, Lexi. She's coming to co-host the podcast.
All right,
You want to introduce the third guy?
I think that's a no. I think she
All
wants
right.
to shove her head in here and Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm Adam. By the way, I sometimes show up.
Yeah.
That's
right?
cool.
Yeah.
We talk about Dominion. It's a card game,
Yeah.
and this is a podcast.
Yeah, about that card game.
Yeah, so it's pretty sweet.
This is a podcast about a card game.
Yeah.
And last episode on Making Luck.
Yeah, we talked about Black Market.
Yeah, we did. Well, we we ended up talking about Black Market, but it was Q&A episode. And one of the,
it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it was the Q&A episode, and this episode is going to be on both research and loan. So anyway, launching into the kingdom discussion, one of the questions was, do we have a kingdom that represents the quintessential competitive Dominion experience for you? And the answer was not really, but here's a kingdom that I think will be interesting.
So, actually, I mean, I didn't give an answer to that question because, we had a target for time and, I had other things I wanted to talk about. But here we are, and I could say that, I didn't really have a specific kingdom to talk about, but, I do have some criteria for when I design kingdoms, and that has a lot to do with it. But, a lot of what Jake was saying, he said interesting and difficult decisions.
Yeah.
And sometimes I say crunchy when I'm referring to that kind of a thing.
Sure.
And I think that's really the most important thing. If there's just something really straightforward that is obvious that you want to do, that's not really quintessential competition Dominion to me. I want something crunchy. I want to look at the board and just not know immediately what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it.
Well, yeah, there are different aspects to what makes a game of Dominion skill-based or competitive or quintessent or whatever. Anyway, so and there are different kinds of thought processes in a game of Dominion. There's the mid-game decisions, how do I optimize this? How do I pilot this deck? What am I doing to react to my opponent? But then there's the aspect of the game that takes place beforehand, where you're planning out what you think is going to be good throughout the game. You're reading the kingdom
and deciding on your opening.
Yeah, deciding on your opening, and also on your next couple of moves too. What kind of deck are you trying to build here? What's your goal? Eventually, what's your end game? And I think that this kingdom does a good job of challenging you on both fronts. And I think that one of these decks came out way stronger than the other things you could build here. But I think that there was a lot to think about at every step of the way. We should probably talk about what's in the kingdom, right?
Yeah, you read it.
Sure. So, in this kingdom, we have Monastery, Native Village, Blake Market, Hermit, Inventor, Jake of all trades, Crown, Governor, Idol, Tragic Hero, and we have the event Dominate and the landmark Wolf Den, and also you have Shelters. Once more for our audio-only listeners, this kingdom has Monastery, Native Village, Black Market, Hermit, Inventor, Jake of all trades, Crown, Governor, Idol, Tragic Hero, the event Dominate, and the landmark Wolf Den. Also, you do have shelters instead of estates.
Nice.
So
Black Market.
Yeah,
that card.
Okay, Black Market and Wolf Den together were
It's
on
funny.
my.
There's memes about that, right?
Yeah, and also I think Black Market and Wolf Den create some of the most interesting games of Dominion that are possible to me. At least.
Crunchy.
Yeah. Well, because you have this aspect of, the Black Market could have anything in it. Anything could come out of that. So, do I get the Black Market?
Even
I probably
possession.
Right. I probably have to get 2 of them.
But
anything,
not stash.
and I can't just like willy-nilly grab things out of the black market because they have to pay for themselves in Wolf Den points. So like, I then have to evaluate like what is the rest of this kingdom doing and what is it doing in relation to what could come out of the black market, and it just creates some really interesting games for me. Yeah, there's some bullcrap associated with sometimes black market screws over the game, but that's every card, TBH. So yeah, I thought this was going to be really interesting. Adam, you have a different perspective. Let's hear it.
Well, I mean, other than the fact that I don't like black market, I think my perspective is mostly the same.
Yeah, you hear this controversial Yeah. All right. So.
I mean, I looked at it and I thought, like, well, what I want to do, I'm looking at the deck control options and the payload options, and there's not really anything missing for me. I saw synergy between Crown and Inventor, and then Crown and Tragic Hero, and then I saw Hermit Madman to enable that, and then Monastery fills in the gaps for all the rest of the thinning needs. And that's really everything that I want.
Yeah. So, in the end, I think we both kind of called this eventually, like, you don't go for black market here because, like, also terminal space is kind of tight. Not because terminal space is, like, not available, but just because the village that's kind of sucks. Other than Crown's great, but, like, the village you can get that doesn't cost 5 kind of sucks.
Oh, yeah, there's Necropolitive Village and Nativeopolis.
Yeah. So, like, you don't really have the terminal space to be playing black markets willy-nilly, and also this board moves super, super fast.
Yeah, I think there was like one game I piled provinces on turn 10.
You piled provinces and got some duchies on turn 10.
Well, yeah, there was some other stuff.
It was this board is very explosive, and I was thinking that like the governors were going to be interesting, and the dominates were, and like those were interesting distractions.
Hey, there were some cases where I found a place for like 1 or 2 govies.
This is true because you needed the draw.
Because the draw was good, and I didn't really feel like lowering some of the other piles. But also, I felt like if I was going to draw cards with that governor, I was going to end the game that turn anyway. So
that's the key there, is that the drawback of drawing with the governor wasn't really a thing, because like once you start kicking off, the game is going to last like a turn more.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Turn Moss.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it was a lot of stuff going on with Crowns and Tragic Heroes and Inventors. Inventors were kind of the key piece of this, yeah?
Big payload, yeah. Without Inventor, I certainly would not have wanted to go for this deck.
Yeah.
You can play a lot of Inventors and do a lot of cool stuff. So, in detail, I guess I'll describe what I was going to do here. Yeah. Open Hermit Monastery. I actually did play around with a Hermit Inventor opening. I don't think it's awful, actually.
Yeah, it did go about the same for you, didn't it?
Well, the one time I did it, my Hermit missed the shuffle, and, like, that was going to be bad no matter what I opened with. Sure. I didn't feel like I was hurt because I opened with the Inventor. I felt like I was hurt because my Hermit missed the shuffle. Yeah. I mean, that game still went pretty well for me. I think I still won it, but, like...
Thinning is good for that deck, but so is having more of the cards that you want.
Yeah, right? Sometimes, if you open Hermit Monastery, sometimes it can be difficult to hit 4. Like, sometimes it just doesn't happen to you a while. And without hitting 4 to get an Inventor in the deck, it can be difficult to hit 5, because one of the main paths to getting to 5 is by inventoring for an Inventor and then, like, playing both those Inventors in the same turn to get a Crown. That seemed to be one of the more common ways for me to guarantee hitting 5.
For sure. And, like, it feels bad to have to spend a Madman to hit 4.
It feels really bad.
But sometimes you do have to do it just because, like you said, it's really important to get to that threshold, and if your deck keeps handing you 3s, well, what are you going to do?
Well, you're going to
get the card that you need for your deck, right?
Yeah, I guess. But that feels bad. So, I mean, I guess there's sort of something to opening with Inventor. But, yeah. I don't know. Hermit Monastery seemed fine to me.
Thin's faster, for sure.
Especially if they collide, but you kind of have to have a lot go right for you to get that little bonus of and then the other thing is you really do want to be changing that Hermit into a Madman on the first shuffle, and if you do that, there's some weird timing between Monastery and that Hermit trash turning into Madman.
Yeah, I will say you usually do want to do it, but like occasionally it was like I can get a Madman now, or I can buy a card and thin an extra card with Monastery. And it wasn't super straightforward if it's like turn 3.
Yeah, the Hermit trash gain thing happens in your cleanup phase, which is after the night phase. So you're bypassing buying a card, which would count towards gaining it from Monastery's effect. So so that means you get to trash 1 card less with the Monastery, right?
So, but then you get the Madman, so you weigh that acceleration against thinning a card, and how much would that accelerate you?
Yeah, so like the Madman is still good, but it just feels kind of bad to draw it together with the Monastery, because like you have these dreams of, oh, well, I collide them, and then I get 2 cards, and I trash 2 things with my Monastery. And I mean, it just doesn't really work out that way.
I mean, it can. It certainly can. It's just
it doesn't necessarily.
You don't rely on it happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I think most of the thinning happens on a turn where you play a couple of Madmen, draw your deck, play a few gainers, and then at the end of it all, you have 1 or 2 Monasteries that are trashing like the last 4 or 5 shelters or coppers that you played that turn.
Yeah, this deck has a certain critical mass that once it has some turns that feel bad. Turns that feel bad, turns that feel bad, and then it starts having turns that feel amazing.
Yeah,
there's no real
turn, and it just changes.
Yeah, there's no build up in between those two. You go from this deck is cobbling together to this deck is in its advanced stages, and you only have a couple turns left before I win.
Yeah, like you're just drawing 3 to 4 times more cards than what you have in the deck, and that's great. Yeah. Because you can just crown Inventors and draw everything you just gained and do it all again.
And a lot of it's like you're turning those into like Tragic Heroes, which are like backup deck control, because then they're gaining crowns, which help you crown Inventors, and it's like
it gives you another buy, and if things cost 0, then that's pretty great.
You also you have a deceptive amount of gains once you get to the thing of overdraw, because like you've got this once you're overdrawing, you're gonna have some crowns and Inventors in your hands, so you're going to be like crowning Inventors and then possibly drawing things which are maybe Inventors
that you gaining a bunch with of things. The Inventors that you just crowned,
right? Like, and then maybe you gained a crown too, and you're crowning another Inventor, and like, so yeah, the supply can go from like, okay, the lowest pile is 4 to okay, there are 3 piles gone, and now I lose. Yeah, so like.
A lot of times, like when you're doing the math on can I win here, do I have a pile out? You look at you draw your deck and you look at the gains you have in hand. It's like, oh, I have 3 crowns and 3 Inventors, and the lowest 3 piles are at 6, 2, and 4.
Yeah, and the answer is still yes.
I can empty all of those and get 6 provinces this turn.
Yeah,
because you can gain gainers, draw them, and then play them. Right.
And the crazy thing is that this happens on like turn like 12 at the latest.
Yeah.
If you're playing, if things are going well and you haven't gotten shafted, you don't even need break draws. You just need to not get screwed.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty great. We tried some other things. I tried some other things. So
they didn't really measure up though, did they?
No, they didn't. But they are good. So it's like worth talking about them. They didn't measure up to this. So like, Hermit Dominate is kind of a 2-card thing by itself. It's not amazing by itself, but it is a bit of a thing. So like it's this deck that like gains some silvers, enough payload in itself to hit 14, and it is every turn basically gaining a Hermit with its Hermit and trashing the province that it had usually, and then dominating. And then you didn't buy a card, so that Hermit becomes a Madman. You stay Madman neutral, and so that's how that deck works usually.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, that deck's. I mean, that's a fine deck. Towards the end of the game, it doesn't have to trash its province, which is a good option to have.
Yeah, it's not that. Don't get me wrong. That's not like combo tier. Like that's not like something. But it is a deck that's always going to be there. There's usually going to be some support for it too outside of that.
Yeah, you'd really like to find a way to make sure you're drawing that Madman every turn.
It's one of the faster ways to start dominating. I will say on boards that have dominate, usually that's the thing.
Hermit's a good card, man. Well, yeah. Madman's a good card.
Well, Hermit's a good card, too.
Hermit's great for getting you Madmen and also does, like, 3 other things.
That's pretty most of them you want, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I also, let's see, tried some stuff with Governor that didn't really work out, just because Governor's main strength is speed, and, did we mention that turn 10 win that Adam had? Where,
that was without being helped by opponents' Governors.
Right. So, and then Black Market here turned out to be, like, disastrously terrible.
I mean, even aside from the fact that there's, like, Wolf Den and you're punting away points.
Yeah, even without Wolf Den, I think Black Market would have been bad here.
Yeah.
So,
but even aside from that, like you just don't have time for that. Like everything you need is in the kingdom. You can do some broken stuff.
Yeah. This is true. So what would you be looking for in the black market deck? The answer is mostly a discard attack, and even that slows them down maybe a turn, right? So,
maybe. If you're lucky, maybe.
Yeah.
Like there's the dream of, I'm going to play a bunch of governors for cards.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to play a discard attack.
That's great if it happens.
Black market!
But meanwhile, it's turn 10.
You black market.
Then meanwhile, it's turn 10, and your opponent has 8 provinces.
Rip.
So, yeah. Anyway, so that was this kingdom. I do
black
think
market is a bad card.
This...
I don't know that.
Yeah, so... I will say that this kingdom was interesting, I think, both in the... So, once you know, what's good here, that strategy doesn't really have anything that can contest it, right? But getting to that point was at least an interesting thought process. This thing turned out to be best, but why was it best? And also the piloting of this deck was kind of interesting, too. So you can watch those games if you feel inclined and see sort of the decision-making. Maybe play this with yourself, against a bot, and see how fast you can get that mega turn off, or against another player. And yeah.
Yeah, you could play Dominion.
Don't do that.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
It's really lame.
Yeah, okay. Never mind. Well, don't do that, but then all the other stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, so like we mentioned, this episode's on research and loan.
Yeah. Do you which one do you want to talk about first?
We'll just go to research.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right, the first one alphabetically. Nice.
Yes.
So,
A, B, C.
Yeah. So
Keep
why don't
going.
I read the text of this card? Research is a 4-cost action duration.
No, it's not.
Yeah, he got there. It's a 4-cost action duration. It's from the Renaissance expansion. It says +1 action, and then trash a card from your hand. Per dollar it costs, set aside a card from your deck face down on this. At the start of your turn, put those cards into your hand.
All right, so that's what research does. We're going to read the text of loan later too, but basically, spoilers, these are both cards that do some trashing and that don't cost 5, and yet tend to be kind of mediocre-ish, right? And so I just want to say that when we did our, this reminded me, when we did our episode on CHAG and IGG, Ill-Gotten Gains, we led with the sort of takeaway from the episode, which was that junking is so powerful that you need a card to be really, really bad to get you to consider not doing it. And I think you can kind of say things like that about research and loan. It's that a card that doesn't cost 5 that trashes cards is so powerful that it needs to be super, super bad to get you to think twice about it. And these cards do have significant drawbacks to the point that we can talk about. But at the same time, we're going to spend some time talking about those. The trashing aspects, the fact that they say trash cards on them is so good, it puts such a high floor on it that you're still going to get these a lot of the time.
Yeah, a lot of, when I'm rating cards, there are certain types of cards, like an attack card. I don't give attack cards less than a 4.
Yeah.
Because they're really good. And trashing and village, all these things are great. And trashing, I think it's the best thing. I love trashing cards.
It's pretty good to do,
cards,
yeah.
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 So research is like apprentice and archive had a baby, and it was a card.
Right, but that baby was born an amputee, because this one only costs... but it's cheaper because of it. So, all right.
Wow!
Yeah, this kind of went to a weird place. All right, so, yeah, it's easy to read this card, and you think about, the dream case of it, right? I mean, nobody would ever overrate research.
Research, I gave it a 4 out of 10.
I think that this is a pretty decent card. So, it's trashing, and that immediately, gets it in my good graces. And it's also, it's non-terminal trashing, too. So, the fact that you can use this to seed your hand is great. The fact that you can trash cards, and you can actually put a bunch of these into your deck and not really care about them colliding, because like we said in our trashing episode, there's a really big difference between terminal trashing and non-terminal trashing, and so this is on the better end of that. I'm gonna
on the better end of that.
Yeah, between terminal and non-terminal, this is non-terminal, which is strictly better.
Non-terminal is the better end when you're considering the two options, terminal and non-terminal. However, when you compare this to like all other non-terminal trashing, I think this is a lot worse than it.
I don't actually think so, because you can you get 2 copies of it and you trash the other one, and it sets up a really good turn. So
that's
I don't know.
Fantastic, but like I want to trash cards in the beginning of the game. So I'm gonna open with this card with my $4 buy. It's orange. I'm gonna play it once on turn 3 or turn 4 maximum. Yeah, it's gonna miss that shuffle. I'm gonna trash 1 card, and this sucks at trashing coppers.
It does, but it's really good at trashing other things. So, like, you want to open with this...
marginal at trashing other things.
You want to open with this along with another trasher if you can.
I don't think you want to open with it. It's orange, man. It's got problems.
I mean, so I think that it's fine to open with just because it says the word trash on it. Like, that's not to be discounted.
I mean, I will open with it because it says the word trash on it. But it's orange, and I'm not going to be happy with it. Like, I'm going to look for other things before I look for orange and tan things to do my trashing in the opening. But, hey, it trashes cards. Hey, I gave it a 4. What do you want from me, man?
I gave it a 6. I gave it above average by my scale. And that's because it's trashing and it's not terminal. That's enough for me.
That's just so slow, man.
It's slow, but, like... And the other thing is that even toward the mid-game, when you're done doing your early game trashing, you can use it to set up a really big spiky turn, which is pretty good.
Hashtag spiky turn.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're drawing your deck, it's not good. If you're not drawing your deck, fan-fiddly-tastic.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
Sweet.
I can say with confidence that as somebody who playtested the Renaissance expansion, I was overrating research before it was cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so, like, you think about this dream scenario with it, right? Which is, like, what you really want to be doing with it. You open with it, and you trash an estate, and you draw 2 cards. That's amazing, right? The idea
like
that
Apprentice.
That's fantastic, but you can open with this, like, all the time.
Yeah, opening Apprentice is not bad.
Yeah, if there was an Apprentice that cost 4 that you could open with, I'd be all about it. I'd be foaming at the mouth.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, that one situation is pretty good. Like, you trash an estate, because estates are super dumb, and you get something for it.
Yeah.
And, you know, drawing those cards on your next turn is not nothing. I mean, you're starting your next turn with 7 cards in hand. And in the beginning of the game, that can really help you spike some price points.
Or just cycle through, well, you know, get cards, shuffle faster so you see that trasher again.
Okay, so you just said 2 things.
I said some things.
You said well, of those things you said 2 of them right next to each other.
Yeah.
You said shuffle faster or shuffle more, what in this case, so that you can see the trasher more often.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, when they talk about the effect of cycling,
you're right to make this point. Go ahead.
They equate the 2 of those, right? You shuffle faster so you see your cards more often. And in a vacuum, that might be true. But, like, there are issues, actually, with both of the cards we're talking about today. And with so many cards in the game, that you really have to look and see what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Research, you know, it cycles through your deck. It makes you shuffle more often. But it's orange, man!
Okay,
it's orange!
Adam hating on orange cards, especially in the opener, has become something of a meme at this point. Like, it's such...
Well, why is this a meme? Because people don't want me to be right about something, so they laugh about me being right about this?
I will say that you're right about this.
I am right about this! Things I say on this podcast, I think about them, so that they're not garbage, so that you, the listener, can... like.
That's true. No, I'm not accusing you. It's okay, Adam. Calm down.
I know you're not.
Calm down. Put the gun down, Adam. But the... Rip. Okay, so...
Oh, yeah.
We need to take that away from you. Anyway, so... yeah, so, like... Normally, I think that you're a little too harsh on orange cards.
No. I am just the right amount of harsh on orange cards, buddy. Anything that's too harsh is usually something that I didn't say.
Sure, but I'm going to say of things you have said. A lot of the time, I do think you've been too harsh on them. because they're orange. I like it, but I
Okay,
will say...
what did I say that was too harsh?
But I will say... Moving on. But I will say that with this one, you're absolutely right, because, like, the problems with this card really do come into... It's
a great example.
Yeah, it's a super illustrated example of the drawbacks of opening with a duration card, because its orangeness is really what's holding it back from being a fantastic card. So what is its orangeness doing?
Well, if you... Let's ignore the situation where you... Okay, let's not ignore it. Let's say you draw the card on turn 3.
Yes.
Draw research on turn 3 with an estate.
That is the dream.
That's great. That's super great.
It's what you wanted.
And like most orange cards that you would consider opening with...
tan ones too, yeah?
Yeah, orange and tan cards. Most of them, if you draw them on turn 3, they're fantastic. Like this, it's best case scenario for them, but like the total effect that you're getting is really great. And I think I mentioned like other orange and tan cards that trash, like the amulets and the rat catchers of the world. These guys, they love to be drawn on turn 3 because you can play them on turn 3. You get the full complement of their effects between turn 3 and turn 4, usually before you shuffle your deck again. Yeah. And then that card gets shuffled back in, and hopefully you draw it on turn 5. Woo!
And that's true for research too.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's
like,
what you want.
Right.
And the odds of that are frickin' 0.
Yeah, they're 0%. So, okay. Research, it's a thing. But you don't draw it on turn 3. You draw it any other time, and the problem is it misses the shuffle. And how big of a deal is that? Well, it's a bigger deal, I think, for research than it is for, say, like, Amulet or something. Like, Amulet is another trasher. The thing with Amulet is it trashes 2 cards in that shuffle, and it's trashing those 2 cards no matter where it hits in that shuffle.
I think the bigger deal here is you can open with 2 Amulets. And you do that just to shore up the case. Yeah. So that you can up your chances of drawing one on turn 3.
I know,
that's why it's good.
Well, the other thing is, like, research is non-terminal, so you'd be like, oh, surely that compensates because I could get multiple researches, but, like, you don't really want that, because the thing with, like, even if I could open with 2 researches, I probably wouldn't, because, like, the same way I would open with 2 amulets, because the research stops being a good card at a certain point. It does not like trashing coppers, so once those estates are gone, your research is really just looking to trash, like, your other research if you have a second one, or some other card, and, like, man, it's on a really low par at that point. Being orange and only trashing 1 card, well, okay, if it's only trashing, like, 1 card in a shuffle, it's probably... its orangeness isn't really coming into play at that point. But
well, if you're trashing 1 card per shuffle, you're getting, like, the best case out of its orangeness. Because maybe you drew it on turn 3, and then you got to shuffle it back in. And then you drew at the top of that shuffle, and you got to shuffle it back in. If it misses any of those shuffles, it's trashing less than 1 card per shuffle. And these shuffles, since, let's say you didn't pair it with another trasher, these shuffles are going to not start happening more quickly. They're not gonna get faster because you're not trashing that fast. So this is a serious limitation of the card. And takeaway here from this part of the discussion is one of the bigger synergies for research is to pair it with some other trasher, especially something that doesn't hate to trash coppers like nearly as much as research.
Absolutely.
Like I think this and this problem is so severe with research that let's say I draw my research on turn 4. And you said, you draw your research with all coppers and you're sad. Or I think you said shed a manly tear, right?
Oh, yeah. We haven't even gotten to, like, the worst case with research. But, like Adam just said it, but, like, we'll come back to that. Because I think it's easy to not appreciate how terrible it is.
But the missing cards, the missing shuffle part of this card is so severe that, like, I would, in some cases, consider trashing a copper just so my research doesn't miss that shuffle. Now, that's bad.
It's usually bad, but I have actually done that too, and I haven't been...
You gotta think about it.
I haven't been convinced it was the right decision when I did it, but I have done it. Like, chosen to trash a copper instead of an estate, just so that I can play my research again.
And, like, that's so bad.
It's so bad, but it costs you $1 that turn.
And sometimes it's better than having it miss the shuffle. That's how bad at missing the shuffle is, especially...
I mean, that implies getting thin is really important, and research was, like, your only way to do it. That implies like thinning a card this shuffle and thinning a card next shuffle is more important than having this dollar this turn and making my deck better. So that's asking a lot of you.
Right. It depends on a lot, and like yes, it's bad. I'm not gonna lie to you, but
all right.
You open with an orange card, man. This is what's
this
gonna
is what
happen
you signed up for.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've been pretty hard on research. Yeah. We should probably talk about what it does do for you because it's not a bad card. Like it's not. It's not a great card.
I guess it's not bad.
So for one thing, it says trash on it, right? Like let's get that out of the way.
Woo!
But the other thing is like what its unique effect of it's what's justifying its orangeness. This thing of like it quote unquote drawing. It's like front loading your draw in like a weird native villagey archivey kind of way. Like what is that doing?
So let's try and squeeze some value out of this.
Sure. Think about the average situation, yeah.
So we mentioned before, you trash an estate, you start next turn with 7 cards in hand. This is great for helping you spike some price points. If there's a $6 or maybe $7 card out there that you want early, this is a halfway decent plan towards spiking that.
Sure, it's not a good plan for spiking that.
Yeah,
because remember the other stuff that's in your deck. It's like you're probably hoping to draw coppers, right? Yeah. It's probably not going to happen because of the research, but if that thing is a thing that you want, at least it gives you a non-zero chance, so, it makes research a better card.
If you're looking for a 6-cost card, that's a decent plan.
You go, like, research silver, and, like, you've got okay odds. You cross your fingers.
Yeah.
Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't.
Yeah. Like, I would actually consider playing around that in some situations. Like, I want that early altar. Yeah, sure, give it to me.
Inheritance, what have you.
That's when it starts to cost 7, I start to get more skeptical because now you're hoping for something pretty good to happen to you.
Yeah,
and that's less likely. And by the time you line that up, you might have been better served by going for a different path to get there.
Sure, for sure.
So let's try and squeeze some more value out of this. We talked about that.
Yeah, like let's say that spiking either isn't a thing you want or it doesn't happen. Like this can still be good to have happen to you. This research trashing this estate. Yeah.
Yeah. So like it draws cards, right? Research draws cards. Now a lot of times, here's the thing. Research draws cards, but in any game with research, you do have the capability to get rid of all 10 of your starting cards.
Theoretically, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad to do it that way because it's so slow, but you
can get more researches, man. Like, if that's something you want to do, you can do it.
That implies that there was some, like, special circumstance that, like, required you to thin, and, like, those are out there. They're not rare.
Yeah, like, there's junking out there, and,
Or there's, like, payload that's really good that you need to line up. Or there's colony games. There's stuff going on.
There's a lot of reasons why you'd want to thin your deck. Thinning is super great.
Yeah.
And, research can draw cards, but you have to be careful because when you do thin your deck, or when you have the capability to thin your deck, drawing cards has a specific purpose, and especially the way that research draws cards. And this is a problem that's shared with Archive. Normally when you want to thin down and there's the ability to increase your hand size, you want to put your deck in your hand. You want all the cards in your hand, and you want that every turn. That's not something that research can get for you.
Yeah, so, like, we've talked to, and, like, we don't always think in deck paradigms when we're actually playing a game of Dominion, but, like, we've talked before in theory about the money density paradigm, or, like, in this case we can just call it the value density paradigm, and the whole deck paradigm. This situation where you're drawing your whole deck, and this situation where you're not drawing your whole deck and just trying to get as good of hands as you can. So, like, the role of thinners and the role of draw cards tend to be playing around the whole deck paradigm because you get your deck in your hand and then you add a payload card, and that payload card is very efficient because it is as of a purchase, because, like, buying a silver is now adding $2 to your payload every single turn. Research doesn't really play nice with that. It's it turns that whole deck paradigm into something emulating, like, a money density paradigm, because, like, then you've got things set away in your researches. You can't draw them that turn. You, like, seed them for next turn, and it's not as good as if you could have just drawn the whole deck.
If you have other sources of draw besides research, they're usually just going to serve you a lot better in this case.
Right.
I will say that research, maybe you get one early, you trash down, and then you have a really good deck, and then at some point you start putting green cards in the deck. And at that point, I think that's when research starts to get pretty good. Because now you have these cards that are going to make it so you can't draw everything that easily, but you still want them. I mean, you're not going to trash those cards. They're provinces. So research is going to help you draw past that when the game starts to get in. So this is sort of like Apprentice, only the research is going to help you square that up for next turn. And so if you know the game is going to go on for another turn, this can actually be really good.
Sure.
Because drawing cards at the start of your turn is usually the best time to do it.
Yeah.
As long as you get that turn, and you're going to make use of that draw, it's not like you're giving up drawing at this turn.
Right, and that's the thing, is if you are giving up drawing at this turn, right? Because, like, if there's some other... If, like, you've got some draw in your hand and you've got a research, and you play the research and you set some cards aside, you need to, like, be okay with not having access to all your payload that turn. Yeah. Some of it's going to get tucked away in the research, you have no access to it. Yeah. So, like, the other thing is, when the deck control resources are pretty weak, to the point that you're never really gonna get to this point where you're drawing your whole deck, or it's gonna be hard or slow to do it, so it's better to just spike to occasional really good turns. Like, research shines in that scenario, when you're willing to have a mediocre turn this turn and have a really good turn next turn. Like, I'm talking about, there's no draw in the kingdom. And,
other than research.
Right, and there's also no, like... And there's, like, a weak village or whatever, and we've got, like, goons out. And I need to have a few, like, really clutch multi-goons turns. And maybe I'm willing to feed research a good card at that point. Because spiking value into subsequent turns is just so much better than having an okay turn now. Yeah, like, research can be okay in those scenarios when the draw is and the control is weak enough that you're just not going to be consistently drawing anyway.
Sure. I think something that you really would like to enable that is, what you don't want to do is trash the best card in your deck in order to set that kind of thing up.
Well, sure.
So I would really like to see, like, rats.
Well, yeah.
Or something along those lines.
Well, rats is a great example because they were made for trash for benefit, basically. That card exists to be trash for benefit. Yeah.
But a lot of times, when you're building a deck, you're faced with the decision of, do I play research and trash, like, a copper, for example?
Yeah.
Which will effectively draw me, some people would say, it will draw you a card every time you shuffle your deck to thin that copper. Do I do that versus do I blow up a good card in my deck to get an immediate benefit, but not immediate, just next turn? I think most of the time I'm in that situation, I'm looking at, I think I'm better off trashing the copper. But, in this kind of situation, maybe I would consider, like, if I don't feel that bad trashing the more expensive card, and there really is a lot of benefit to drawing a lot of cards on a particular turn, like, there's no other draw, and this is where it's coming from. Then, I would consider doing that. But, again, this feels pretty bad. I'm going to need some pretty specialized payload, like a Goons, to justify that.
This is not a commonplace situation. You shouldn't just assume that this is going to be good, because a lot of the times when we're talking about these decks that have such weak control that you're not going to draw everything anyway, like, rather than try to spike really good turns with research, it's better to just, like, play some kind of density themed deck in the first place, like money density, or playing a terminal every turn, whatever you're doing. Yeah. So you're looking for something that's rewarding spiking big turns.
You know what card costs a decent amount, and I would not be sad to trash to my research? Another research!
Oh man, I thought you were gonna say Duchy. No, Duchy's points.
Yeah.
All right.
Duchy's
also research is not worth points, so that's worth considering.
Dang it.
Yeah. All right. So the next card we're gonna move on to is Loan, right? Yeah. And so, like, research, it was sort of like Archive and Apprentice had a baby. So Loan is sort of like Ratcatcher and Copper had a baby.
What?
Yeah. So you want to read the text?
No, it's like Venture and Counterfeit had a baby.
Yeah, or that.
Yeah.
So you want to read the text on this guy?
Sure. Loan is a $3 treasure. It's from the Prosperity expansion. And it gives you $1 when you play it. And then it says, when you play this, reveal cards from your deck until you reveal a treasure. Discard it or trash it, and discard the other cards.
Yeah.
So I've seen some people, they read this card and they're like, what is this good for? And then they put it in their deck and they're like, wow, this is terrible. Why would I want this?
Or they say, wow, this is amazing.
Some people out there will tell you that it's amazing.
And then they put it in their deck and they're like, wow, this is terrible. So, like, I don't know. I was in the latter camp when I first read this card. I was like, oh my god, I get to just skip through all my cards and see my good cards and trash my bad ones. This is...
Yeah.
And,
how'd that go for you?
Well, it's not... It's not important to think about the results.
Yeah, it's really... I mean, we don't want to be results-oriented.
It's about having fun.
Yeah, that's what Dominion is about. Really,
Okay.
I think... So, Research was a card that is very generically useful.
Sure.
But it's just not all that powerful.
Whereas Loan is the opposite, yeah?
Yeah, Loan is... I mean, when you're getting the most out of this effect, it's very, very powerful. But you need to jump through a lot of hoops. There's a lot of requirements.
Yes.
To get to that.
For it to be valuable. And so, Loan is another card like Research that it is a little worse in practice than it might look on paper. So, like, you think about these dream scenarios where you're cycling past a bunch of your bad cards and then trashing a copper. And
I
all
skipped
that
5 estates on turn 3. And
I had 5 estates on turn 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
possible.
Yeah, that's a...
And then I find my cursed gold and I trash it.
Right. All right, let me compose myself.
That was
okay.
good.
So,
that
like,
pretty
yeah,
good.
you think about the Loan, and you think about the dream scenario again, like we did with Research, and you're skipping
I was
through,
just dreaming about that last
skipping
night.
through your bad cards, and then you're trashing
You
the
think I
copper.
just made that up?
And that on paper is fantastic. And so this is a trasher. Again, it helps you shuffle faster, see your trasher, see your good cards. But actually,
shuffle faster. Unless it doesn't. Go ahead.
Well, no, I wanted to say that Loan being not as good as it looks is really instructive, I think, really illustrative. It gets at the difference between moving cards around, shuffling faster, and productive cycling. Because Loan is just as likely to skip your good cards, and that's the real problem with it, is that, like, it's really, you usually want to open with it when you get it, and you open it with something else, and it's kind of likely to skip that something else.
Okay, so let me just break out some math here, because
math.
This is an important point.
Yes.
Okay, this effect, Loan skipping other cards, non-treasure cards, right? It could skip estates. It could skip other good cards, and the thing is that when you do the math, it all cancels out.
Yeah, it's kind of a coin flip.
Because Loan is just as likely to skip over a bad card and get you to your good card faster than it is to skip over your good card, right? And so when you take the magnitude of each of those effects, multiply by the odds of them, it's actually neutral. So yeah. the places where that calculation doesn't hold up are the following. Thing number 1, Loan causes you to shuffle your deck.
Yeah.
That's going to mess with the numbers.
And you can't really... I mean, you can kind of control that, because you can, like, gauge how likely it is, but you can't control when you drew the line, right?
You can't control when you draw the Loan, but you do know what's in the rest of your deck when you have a Loan in hand that you could play. And if you're towards the bottom of your deck, and you know that there are no treasures in there, then you have to think about, I'm going to cause a shuffle. Is this a shuffle that I want to cause? Is it worth playing the Loan? Okay, you have control over that, which is actually a benefit.
Yes. I'm going to say usually the answer is yes, because we're pretty early in the game, I'm assuming, and, like, how bad of a shuffle could this really be? Right? Like, what am I really making happen?
But, you just look at that shuffle,
You
man.
do think about it. Yes, you do take some time to think about it.
Yes,
for sure.
You definitely do the calculation, what will happen when I cause the shuffle.
Yeah.
The other thing...
But don't just, like, have a good card in hand and be like, okay, no. Like, actually think, yeah.
Yes, for sure. Yes, definitely. But, you know, if you cause that shuffle and your good cards are in play or in hand with the Loan, then that's that's a mark against triggering that shuffle, right? If you have a bad hand and you've already seen your good card and you're shuffling it in, so this is just generic shuffle control advice we're giving you here. The other place where that calculation doesn't quite hold up is the fact that Lone finds that treasure and then you don't draw that treasure.
Though that's the thing, and that implies you. I was saying, like, God forbid that other open with a Lone was like a silver. Right, if you open like Lone Silver,
don't open Lone Silver
or Lone
don't
some
do that.
treasure. You have you're so far behind.
That's why you don't do that.
You don't do that, and it's not even that likely to happen. But if it happens, you are like you're more behind than when you started the game.
So here's the thing. You presumably buy a loan because you want to trash your coppers, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to buy loan and then get another treasure so that I can trash that other treasure. That's just not something I want.
Tomb. Yeah, but go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I'm buying coppers.
Yeah.
That's bad. Don't do that. So you want to trash your coppers with the loan. And if you ever put another treasure in your deck besides the loan, you're gonna play your loan hopefully 7 times to trash these 7 coppers, right?
That's the dream.
At least. And at some point, you're going to have less and less coppers. You're going to hit that other treasure. Your loan is not going to find a copper every single time. It is absurdly unlikely that your loan is going to find a copper every single time.
At a certain point, you have few coppers in the deck. And then at that point, loan has some real weaknesses as a thinner. It actually combines the anemic sort of chip trashing that like Trade Route or like Research give you with the drunken imprecision of something like a Doctor. So you get the worst of all worlds, and it's just awesome.
I love the fact that you used drunken imprecision to describe Doctor.
Yeah.
That's just...
So, like...
That's so mechanically accurate, but like, actually kind of thematically accurate.
Picturing the Doctor staggering in drunk and be like, alright!
YouTube has been recommending a lot of clips from House for me recently, so... Anyway, please continue.
The big picture here is that getting the loan, it means you really needed to trash coppers for some reason. And I'm not saying that, like, you pretty much usually want to trash coppers. I mean, like, you have to need to trash coppers more than usual, I think, to justify the loan, because it's a pretty risky proposition. And the thing is that you're buying the loan to trash coppers. That's the purpose of the card. Loan is a copper. So you put the loan in the deck, and you have added 1 copper to the deck, and you play it and trash 1. Okay, you're about even from where you started. But, like, you spent 3 on this thing to get about even. And only once you have trashed your second copper can you say that the loan started to thin your deck. And that's super slow, right? Because you had to increase your deck by 1 effective copper to then, like, eventually trash coppers later on. It's like how Island is a really bad thinner for value draws. Like, I'm getting it is to, like, get these useless cards out of my deck, but I have to put a useless card in my deck to get started here. And it's only doing one a shuffle, so, like, man, there has to be, at a certain point, if what you're doing is that slow and there's no, like, really big payoff to Spike 2, just playing money and not trashing can beat that. So,
yeah, I mean...
Not always, but, like...
Loan certainly doesn't fit into the kind of deck that you're describing.
Sure.
I do want to be a little more positive on Loan, because, I mean, yes, what Jake's describing is, you put Loan in the wrong deck, and Loan's not going to work very well for you there.
And, like, what I'm saying is, like, identify that wrong deck, because I think you should usually assume that it's the wrong deck for Loan, unless there's some...
Unless you have the right support.
Right, or there's some... Unless you have the right support, which Adam's going to get into, or unless there's some greater than normal need to trash coppers. Like, again, we come to these things that normally, like, really encourage us to trash coppers, like a colony game or abnormally good payload that you could be drawing instead, stuff like that. But, yeah, go ahead.
So, Lone really likes to have a few things that will make it really, really good. And I don't want to... I mean, really, really good is definitely what I would use to describe Lone when it has the right kind of support. What does that support look like? I think the biggest form of support that you're looking for is some kind of virtual payload.
Yeah.
we talked about what happens when you put Loan in a deck with other treasures that you don't want to trash. That's really bad. If you have Virtual Payload just means any payload that you get in your action phase, or in this case, in most cases, it's equivalent to just non-treasure payload.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the classics like Baron, right? Baron gives me a lot of money, and it's not a treasure card. So, you can open Baron Loan, the classic Baron Loan from the old days.
Is that a classic? I think that's before my time. That's classic.
I've been opening Baron Loan since before you were in diapers, man.
All right, before I was even born.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can do that, and that's really, really good for Loan, because the Baron can continue to have you do productive things with your turn, and the Loan, all the while, is going to be thinning those coppers, so that that facet of your deck control is taken care of, while you're still able to accomplish something with your turns. So Virtual Payload is the first thing that you really want, and really that's just a matter of avoiding silver. That's what it comes down to most of the time.
Yeah.
The second form of support that you want is you want to find some way to trash estates. Loan can't trash estates, and estates are bad.
Yeah, you usually want the estates gone.
You want them gone more than you want the coppers gone.
Pro tip.
Yeah. So if you can find something that trashes estates, that's really, really good. Now, trashing estates often is a form of Virtual Payload. I'm looking at something like a remodel, right?
Yeah.
I can open remodel and Loan. I can trash my estates. I can gain more things. Hopefully those things are not silver.
Right, because then the Loan is worse.
Right. Don't do that. But maybe you can just get more remodels and then remodel your remodels into something good. You can remodel your Loan when you're done with it. It's not the worst thing ever. But also, Priest kind of fits both of these things. It's got that Virtual Payload. It also likes to trash your estates.
For sure.
And then finally, the other weakness of Loan that is looking for support here is Jake talked about Drunken Imprecision. Loan is really bad at getting every single copper out of your deck.
There are going to be those last few at a certain point, and it's not, you need, like, we've talked about trashers before in terms of, like, how precise they are. Like, we talk about something like Count as, like, a sledgehammer trasher. Just, like, really loves to get in there and sweep out swaths of cards, or just trash blindly. And Loan is kind of like that as well.
In a sense, yeah. Loan. This is kind of true of everything that trashes something that isn't from your hand.
Yeah, you don't have control.
So like Lookout is the same way. It's really hard to get completely thin with just Lookout.
Yeah, less so with Lookout, I'll say, because you get to choose from 3 at least. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
Right. So you're looking for a certain type of support. Like, you're gonna run into this situation where you don't want to just like sit and spin and like, I'm gonna open Loan, I'm gonna trash down to 2 coppers in my Loan, and then I'm gonna start drawing. So like, you're gonna lose the game if you spend all that time doing that. You have to also build your deck. You have to start drawing some cards, and you're gonna draw everything at some point because you're thinning, right?
And
that's what you want.
Usually at a certain point, you're going to need to put a treasure in your deck as payload to help you progress. Like, to help advance to the next phase of the build.
Sometimes treasures can be a part of your payload. And at that point, the Loan trashing coppers gets pretty bad. Unless you can target discard something from your hand.
Yeah.
So, like, the classic example here is Oasis. I draw my deck, I play an Oasis, I discard a copper, and now, in my buy phase, I can play my Loan, and the copper is the only thing in my discard and in my deck. I shuffle, find my copper, goodbye copper.
For sure.
Now I can get all of these stupid things out of my deck because I have that kind of support. So those are the limitations of Loan, and then we're looking for support to overcome those limitations of Loan. Let me just tell you that something that trashes a card that's not in your hand is really, really great.
This is true because trashing is great, and that's like balanced usually by the fact that it has to make your turn a lot worse to do it. But
yeah.
Trashing not from hand, gets around that.
Right. So, I mean, when you're trashing not from your hand, you usually have to jump through some hoops to make sure you can trash what you want and get to the deck that you eventually want to get. So that's why we're looking for the support from Loan. But when you can make that happen, Loan is a copper. And compared to other things that trash cards from your hand, that's actually really, really good.
Yeah.
You get a money, you don't make your hand worse other than the fact that you didn't get a silver.
It's no recruiter.
And you didn't even... That has nothing to do with it.
Just pushing his buttons.
Anyway, and you don't even have to spend an action to do...
really bad. So.
No, I don't! That's not true, I've never said that.
It's too easy, man.
Anyway, you don't have to spend an action to do it, okay? You can even... F*** you, man. So anyway, that's all I have to say about loan. I'm done.
Yeah, ditto. Good podcast.
Apparently.
Yeah, all right, so we got a kingdom, and it has research and loan in it both. And we didn't really see the need to exclude one from the other. In fact, we thought that would kind of be interesting. So,
yeah, man.
We also made sure that there was no other trashing in this kingdom. That was a priority of ours. So, Adam, you wanna...
There's definitely no trashing.
You want to read off what we've got here?
Okay. This kingdom has Beggar, Stonemason, Fortune Teller, Loan, Lookout, Necromancer, Research, Talisman, Capital, Hunting Party, Lexi Squeaky Toy,
Yeah.
And it also has Triumph and Traveling Fair, along with Platinum and Colony. Hey, doggo. Well, that's what Lexi thinks. One more time for our audio-only listeners. Beggar, Stonemason, Fortune Teller, Loan, Lookout, Necromancer, Research, Talisman, Capital, Hunting Party, and there's Triumph and Traveling Fair, and this board has colonies.
All right.
Yeah, so we rolled this the first kingdom we rolled.
Yeah.
And we disagreed on what to do.
Nice.
And so here we are, man.
Yeah. So okay, Adam, why don't you talk about what you want?
Well, I'm looking for support for Loan.
Okay.
And I'm going down that list, and I see Fortune Teller is a source of virtual payload.
Yeah.
That's nice. I'm in. I also see other ways to trash estates. So there's Lookout and Research. Lookout is a fine card. It can help me even maybe have like some other treasures in my deck, but maybe top deck a copper or something. That's a little ambitious, but hey, it could happen.
Could happen.
But also there's Research to make sure I can pin down the cards in my hand that I actually want to trash. Or maybe even Stonemason serves that purpose, because I'm likely to want a Stonemason for hunting parties or something. So I'm thinking about... I see the support for Loan that I want, and that means I want to make Loan work.
I think this board is kind of money-ish. I think you're mostly playing money here. I really do. And
what does that mean? What's the deck you want to build?
So you're going to be using money to buy things for the most part.
Wow.
So
hard-hitting insight here.
Yeah.
Man.
No, I mean, okay, so I'm looking at... I'm looking at, like... What am I looking at?
You're looking at a kingdom, Jake?
Okay.
It's got 10 cards.
Yeah, you want to read those for me? No, I was... so, I said I was going to open with a Research and possibly a Lookout.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How's that feel, man? Research is
fine.
Research is orange.
Research is orange, but I want the estates gone, and I don't want to just rely on the Lookout to do it. And the thing is, like, I kind of see this build that I can just, like, get some golds in the deck really quickly and have some silvers, and Platinums? I don't really... Yeah, Platinums too. And I don't really necessarily... I don't really necessarily see a place for the Loan. Because, like, I don't think that we're talking about building too different of a deck in the long run, although I would like to hear what you think you do in the long run. I'm kind of curious about Triumph, but I think for the most part you're just playing money with using Researches. and lookouts to thin, and then get some golds and platinums and possibly some hunting parties. And
I think hunting party is the most important card here for sure.
I think you get some of those, and I just don't really see a lot of incentive to do a whole lot else. There's shenanigans you can do involving Triumph. You can do some like capital stuff with maybe some talismans. I don't think Beggar's good, but you could do it. Stonemason's a thing.
Beggar Triumph!
Beggar Triumph, you could do it.
Seems pretty bad.
Yeah, it seems pretty bad. But honestly, I think all that just gets crapped on by colonies, and I think that the deck that ignores the loan and uses these other sources of trashing and then gets the payload in the deck faster is just going to outpace it. But
so, hunting party stack.
Oh, I actually had said I'm opening fortune teller research. That's what I had advocated.
You want a fortune teller with the research?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I'm actually
thinking
said
maybe lookout though.
Yeah, I'm actually maybe thinking lookout fortune teller instead, or lookout research. I'm between. I want those 3 cards, and I'm not sure which 2 I'm opening with.
Okay,
but I'm thinking.
So I do like a fortune teller loan opening. The thing is, research does have that allure of like, oh, I can spike a $7 turn and get a Stonemason and get 2 hunting parties with it.
It's possible.
That's tempting.
I'm not banking on that.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't want to bank on it too much.
Also, I will try it though. I will try. You know, I'm gonna go with fortune teller research because that is a possibility, and and giving myself the chance to high roll like that is appealing.
Yeah, I like loan. I like loan here.
I'm actually probably stonemasoning at first for capital hunting party because I want to spike for colony.
You can't gain...
Or not colony.
You can't gain capital off of stonemason gaining. You have to gain action.
Yeah, I would like to do that, but of course I'm going to get the hunting parties instead.
Yeah.
Because that's legal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good call.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think loan's going to do a lot of work here. It's going to help you hit 5 early. Because it's got that sweet, sweet dollar. Get your hunting parties. Cycle you back to all the cards you want to play more of it. I think the attack of Fortune Teller actually matters here.
That we agree on.
Once you started greening, if I see you open a Fortune Teller, I might... I mean, the loan kind of helps against that, but like the lookout...
the only time the Fortune Teller attack doesn't matter is in the middle of the game. Right? The Fortune Teller is going to do stuff to the opponent at the beginning. It's going to do stuff to them at the end. In the middle, once the estates are gone and they're not ready to green, it's not going to do anything.
Oh, wait a second. Fortune Teller's attack is hard countered by Zombie Mason.
And also Lookout.
And also Loan. Well, it's not hard countered by that, but...
Yeah. Okay. So, I don't know.
It's really only at the end of the game, but the fact that it's virtual payload, I think is a big deal.
What are you thinking about the gamey shenanigans with Triumph? Is that like something that's entering your mind, or
I mean, if my opponent just playing money with platinum? If my opponent doesn't go for hunting parties, then sure, I'm gonna get some points while not making my deck worse. But like, I'm gonna win no matter what I do. Seems more like tiebreaker points to me.
Yeah.
If I end up building a little more, I can just pop a traveling fair and like, boom, Triumph.
Or possibly like Stonemason something and boom, Triumph. Whatever.
There's a lot of ways
to
gain
it is that you're doing
cards.
With.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if I have a lot to say about this kingdom other than what we said.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Loan's pretty good here, I think.
I'm not going to be shocked if it is. I don't think it is.
Sweet.
We'll see.
But you should let us know what you, the listener, thinks. You can leave a comment in the comments section if you're watching this on YouTube. Or if you're not, or you don't feel like leaving a comment, you can head on over to adamhorton.com.
Or you can shoot us up on the Discord. Wait, did you already say that?
Shoot us up.
Oh, God. No, don't shoot us up. Don't do that. I'm tired.
But maybe you can,
say hi
visit the Discord channel
and say hello.
Type with the keyboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then communicate with us that way in a non-violent way.
Yeah, I'm gonna go home and shoot up. So,
we'd like to hear from you. If you send me an email, apparently sometimes it goes to my spam folder for no fucking reason.
Other than that, it thinks it's spam.
Yeah, just like I said, for no reason.
Yeah.
And,
we forgot the most important synergy with loan.
Oh yeah, what's that?
And that's keep, because it's really important and helpful whenever you're talking about any treasure to say, well, what if there's keep?
Yep.
Anyway.
Yep. Thanks for that.
I always
commentary,
think it's
man.
funny when people do that. It's like, okay, yeah, you did it.
Wow.
You said it.
That
You said the thing we were
treasure
all
on
thinking
it,
about, huh?
man.
Yeah.
It says treasure on it, so we have to mention keep. Aren't you glad you listen to this podcast? Yeah, so it's pretty late, and I think Jake's pretty tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
We're
gotta
a little loopy.
carry some peeps in Overwatch, so
Yeah.
we'll
See
see.
when that happens.
Yeah.
Man, it's so crazy to think that we're like already to episode 91 of the podcast.
Yeah, crazy, man.
Yeah. In dog
Oh, that's
episodes. Yeah. Thanks for listening to Making Luck.
Yeah, I was not gonna give you that satisfaction.
You mess with my outline. I didn't see this. What is this?
I was hoping you would see that.
You're just trying to piss me off, aren't you?
Yeah.
Oh, which one?
Adam has certain like formatting things that he despises for like reasons I don't. He like hates them more than I like understand why he hates them.
Yeah, like when you put a space in between every letter, that's just tacky. I hate it.
That's what my username.
I thought you did that just to piss me
No,
off.
I did that because it's the people were getting mad at me for changing my username too many times.
You changed it.